Welcome to History Love, where we explore the stories, people, and events that shaped our world. Let's dive into the past and uncover history's most fascinating moments. The Great Depression, a nation on the brink. The wind howled through the empty streets of New York City, carrying the echoes of desperation. The stock market had crashed in October 1929, and the world as Americans knew it began to unravel. Banks shuttered their doors, businesses crumbled, and families who had once thrived found themselves staring into an abyss of uncertainty. The Great Depression had arrived, a relentless force that would redefine an entire generation. By 1933, the crisis had reached its darkest depths. Factories stood silent, their machines rusting under layers of dust. Bread lines stretched for blocks as gaunt faces, once full of hope, now bore the weight of economic collapse. 1 in 4 American workers was unemployed, and in rural areas, the devastation was even worse. Farms withered under financial strain, and desperate families, particularly in the Dust Bowl-ravaged Midwest, packed their belongings into rickety Model Ts, heading westward toward California in search of a dream that did not exist. They were called the Okies, refugees in their own country, lured by false promises of abundant jobs. The railways became highways of the homeless. Vagabonds, young and old, clung to the sides of freight trains, risking life and limb for the chance of a better tomorrow. Cities saw shanty towns known as Hoovervilles, a bitter nod to President Herbert Hoover, sprawling across parks and vacant lots. Families huddled together under makeshift shelters, their futures as fragile as the cardboard walls surrounding them. Yet, amidst the despair, change was brewing. As the nation struggled to rise from its knees, the federal government began to play a role unlike ever before. Social Security was born, ensuring that the elderly would never again be left to fend for themselves. Unemployment benefits became a safety net for millions, while new labor laws empowered workers to stand against exploitation. The Wagner Act reshaped the American workforce, solidifying the power of unions and ensuring fair negotiations between employers and employees. The size of the federal government swelled as its responsibilities expanded. In 1929, fewer than 600,000 civilian employees worked for the government. By 1939, that number had surged to nearly 1 million, a testament to the government's unprecedented involvement in the nation's economy. Federal spending skyrocketed, growing from just over 3% of the gross national product in the late 1920s to nearly 10% by the end of the 1930s. Though the economy showed signs of life by the mid-1930s, the recovery was agonizingly slow. By 1937, another economic downturn sent shockwaves through the nation, proving that the scars of the Great Depression would not fade easily. It wasn't until World War II, when factories roared back to life to support the war effort, that the country truly emerged from its decade-long nightmare. A new economic order, the Great Depression's lasting impact. The Great Depression not only shattered lives, but also revolutionized economic thinking. The catastrophe exposed the dangers of unchecked capitalism, and many economists concluded that inadequate demand had fueled the economic collapse. This realization gave rise to the Keynesian economic model, which argued that governments must actively intervene to stabilize demand and prevent future depressions. For the next 4 decades, this philosophy dominated economic policymaking, shaping the financial strategies of nations worldwide. While modern economists debate its effectiveness, the general public continues to embrace the idea that government intervention is essential in times of crisis. Despite its significance, economists have long debated the precise causes of the Great Depression. Scholars such as Peter Temin, Barry Eichengreen, David Glasner, and Ben Bernanke have conducted extensive research, forming an emerging consensus on why the economic downturn began in 1928 and 1929. However, questions remain as to why the Depression was so prolonged and why some nations suffered more than others, particularly the United States. By the late 1920s, the economic collapse had already begun to spread worldwide. Germany, Brazil, and parts of Southeast Asia had entered economic downturns by 1928, followed by Poland, Argentina, and Canada in early 1929. The United States joined this grim procession in the middle of that year. A common thread connected these struggling economies, the international gold standard. Before World War I, most industrialized nations adhered to the gold standard, linking their currencies to fixed amounts of gold. However, the war forced European countries to print vast amounts of money, leading to inflation and an influx of gold into the United States, which had remained on the gold standard. After the war, countries sought to restore the pre-war gold standard, with Britain attempting to reclaim its financial dominance from New York City. Some nations devalued their currencies, while others, like Britain, aimed to return to gold at pre-war exchange rates, a goal that proved unrealistic given the war-induced monetary expansion. The imbalance was stark. The United States gold reserves had doubled, holding nearly 40% of the world's monetary gold. There is simply not enough gold remaining to back other countries' currencies at existing exchange rates. To address this, leading nations devised a gold exchange system. The United States and Britain committed to redeeming their currencies for gold, while other nations held much of their reserves in U.S. dollars or British pounds. As countries rushed to return to the gold standard, the demand for gold surged. France, which had undervalued its currency when rejoining in 1928, began accumulating vast gold reserves. This imbalance made French exports cheaper while making imports more expensive, leading to a trade surplus financed by incoming gold shipments. Yet instead of using this gold inflow to expand its money supply, an action required by gold standard principles, France hoarded the metal, creating a global liquidity squeeze. At the same time, the United States Federal Reserve raised its discount rate in 1928 to curb speculation in the booming stock market. This move attracted more gold inflows into the U.S. economy, but at the expense of other nations, which began losing gold at an alarming rate. In response, these countries imposed deflationary policies, restricting economic activity and slashing wages to maintain their gold reserves. As the economic contraction deepened, new policies were introduced. Social Security taxes in 1936 and 1937, along with new taxes on undistributed corporate profits, increased labor costs and discouraged business investment. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve doubled reserve requirements, constraining the money supply further. By mid-1937, the recovery had stalled, unemployment rose again, and the economy entered another recession. Many economists argue that uncertainty about Roosevelt's New Deal policies, along with fluctuating regulations and business restrictions, hindered long-term investment. Public opinion polls in the late 1930s revealed widespread concerns that Roosevelt's policies had slowed recovery and led to government overreach. Businesses hesitated to expand, fearing further intervention, and investment remained sluggish until the wartime boom finally ended the Depression. The United States had plunged into its most prolonged and severe economic crisis, reshaping the course of history forever. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history. If you love this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to History Love. Together, let's keep the love for history alive. See you in the next chapter.